entered a building and felt that the space itself was welcoming you. The feeling often arrives before any conscious appraisal of any detail, and it might be carried on the density of the air or the sudden drop in volume of the sound or a particular way that the light settles on the stone or the timber. Perhaps there's a table that seems to invite people to gather around it, or a window seat offering a place to pause, or a well-worn chair that has already accommodated many, many lives. Some buildings make us want to linger. Others seem determined to hurry us through and occasionally out of the nearest available exit. Welcome to Wednesday Wandering with me, Kate Field. Wondering about people and places that are fascinating and spiritual and interesting, and not just me wandering off. I am delighted that you are here on this new channel. Earlier this year, I visited Marseille in France and entered its great cathedral overlooking the Mediterranean. It's known locally as La Majeure, although its full name is the Cathedral of Sainte-Marie-Majeure, St. Mary Major. I remember the striped stone, the vast domes, and the extraordinary mixture of Romanesque and Byzantine forms, and it feels suitably immense for a city shaped by the sea, migration, and the constant arrival and departure of people. At the time, I didn't give much thought to the cathedral's dedication, but now, for preparing this reflection for the 5th of August, I found myself travelling in my imagination from Marseille to another St. Mary Major, the ancient papal basilica in Rome. The two buildings share a name and a dedication, although their histories and their characters are very different from each other. Marseille's present cathedral belongs largely to the 19th century and stands beside the remains of its medieval predecessor. Rome's basilica carries us much further back into the traditions of the 4th and 5th centuries. Both demonstrate how a sacred place gathers layers of architecture and memory and devotion across the passages of time. Today is the 5th of August, and on the church calendar it marks the dedication of the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, a feast associated with one of the loveliest and most improbable stories in the Christian tradition. So, let me tell you a story. According to the legend, a wealthy Roman nobleman and his wife had been praying for guidance about how to use their fortune. During the night of the 4th of August in the year 358, they both dreamed that the Virgin Mary asked them to build a church in her honour on the place where snow would fall. We're in Rome. Snow in Rome is very unusual at any time. Snow during the feast, the fierce heat of a Roman summer, would have seemed almost unimaginable. Yet, when the morning came, the summit of the Esquiline Hill was covered by a fall of snow. Pope Liberius, who was said to have received a similar dream, went to the hill and traced the outline of the new church upon the white ground. The story has been cherished for centuries, giving St. Mary Major its traditional association with Our Lady of the Snows. The present basilica belongs principally to the following century. Its construction is associated with Pope Sixtus III and the Council of Ephesus, held in 431, which affirmed Mary's title as Theotokos, the Mother of God. Legend and documented history have therefore gathered on the same site, much as the basilica itself has accumulated mosaics and chapels and monuments and prayers and human memories. Every year, on the 5th of August, the snowfall is remembered inside the Basilica. During the Gloria, at the solemn Mass, thousands of white rose petals are released from the opening high in the ceiling. They drift slowly down into the nave, remaining suspended for a few moments in the atmosphere of the building before coming to rest on the floor. The shower of petals is repeated during the Magnificat at Vespers. It must be an extraordinary sight, and one day I will go there. The architecture briefly filled with moment as though the ancient legend has been given physical form once again. In August 2024, Pope Francis celebrated this feast at St. Mary Major and reflected upon two signs preserved within the Basilica: the symbolic snowfall and the ancient Marian icon known as the Saulus Populi Romani, the protectoress of the Roman people. He described the snowfall as an image of grace, something beautiful, freely given, and impossible to predict. Grace cannot be earned or arranged in advance. It arrives as a gift, awakening our capacity for wonder. And those words have acquired a particular poignancy. Less than a year after giving that homily, Pope Francis was buried at St. Mary Major, close to the icon before which he had prayed so often. He visited this site before and after his apostolic journeys, bringing the events and people that he had encountered into that place of prayer. His simple tomb has now become another part of the Basilica's long human story. The building holds the memory of councils and popes, of artisans and pilgrims, public ceremonies and private sorrows. Each generation has entered beneath its roof carrying its own prayers and its own losses, but also its gratitude and hope. When something sacred or luminous occurs, human beings often feel an impulse to mark the place. A sanctuary gives memory a physical presence. Its roof holds the echoes of prayer. Its dark side chapels offer sorrow and somewhere to sit. Stone, glass, wood, and pigment become vessels for experiences that are difficult to contain in mere words. Yet our need for places of belonging extends beyond churches. We also need things like libraries and studios and theatres and parks and cafes and village halls and public rooms, places where we can encounter other people, participate in shared activity, or spend time without being expected to buy something every few minutes. And this brings me to a very different building and to the work of the Italian-born Brazilian architect Lina Bardi. In 1976, Bardi was commissioned to transform a former factory complex in the Pompéia district of São Paulo. The site was to become a centre for culture, sport and leisure, known as SESC Pompéia. The expected architectural response might have been to just clear away the old industrial structures and create something pristine. Bardi paid close attention to what was already there. She admired the existing factory buildings and recognised the quality of their early reinforced concrete construction. And she also noticed that people had begun using the site for cultural and community activities already. Life had arrived before the architect, as it were. Bardi retained and adapted the old factory buildings, allowing their history to remain visible. She incorporated a theatre, a library, studios, restaurant, a reading area, and spaces for games and playing. And beside them, she added 3 tall towers of exposed concrete. One contained sports halls and a swimming pool. Another held circulation and changing areas. The third stored water. High walkways connect the principal towers, stretching across the open space between them. The result is uncompromising and playful at the same time. The concrete carries the marks of its construction. The old walls remain visibly old. Irregular openings puncture the towers, and the bridges crossing between them, bring an unexpected sense of adventure. People can swim, they can read, they can go to the theatre, they can make art, share a meal, play chess, or just sit around one of the communal tables. Children run through the spaces that still retain the character of an industrial building. Conversation, footsteps, music, and the clatter of cutlery all become part of the architecture itself. Bardi's attention extended to the smallest elements of the complex. She designed its furniture and signs and the visual identity, including the heavy wooden chairs constructed from thick interlocking pieces. The chairs were made for intensive public use, and they were placed around large shared tables in the restaurant and reading areas. There is something appealing about an architect who could move between designing monumental concrete towers and considering the shape of an ordinary chair. And I really love that. Because a building can announce its generosity through a great open hall, but we experience that generosity in human-sized details, a comfortable place to sit, a table with room for another person, a clear path through the busy space, or a window positioned at the right height to let us see outside and let the light come in. There is, of course, a connection between St. Mary Major and SESC Pompéia, although their materials, histories and purposes are quite different. The Basilica gathers people through liturgy, prayer and memory. SESC Pompéia gathers them through reading and theatre and swimming and games and food and conversation. One has acquired its meaning across many centuries, and the other emerged from Bardi's careful observation of contemporary communal life. Both acknowledge that human beings need places in which to gather and to meet and to be together. Their architecture gives life a generous frame. It permits people to arrive, to pause, to move, to participate, and to become part of something shared. And this raises a question. Can architecture itself create belonging? A building can offer shelter, light, warmth, and a place to sit. Its entrance can be obvious and accessible. Its rooms can be arranged to encourage conversation, for example, or to provide quietness and contemplation. A long communal table conveys something very different from a row of separate desks. A circle of chairs alters the relationship between those sitting in them. Architecture can make welcome possible. Yet the welcome is completed by the people inside. Someone must notice the unfamiliar face. A chair must be drawn into the circle. Directions may need to be offered without making the newcomer feel foolish or silly. A community must allow itself to change a little because another person has entered it. Many of us have experienced the strange loneliness of being present in a crowded room while feeling that we are outside whatever it is inside taking place. We may also remember entering an unfamiliar place where one small gesture transformed everything. Somebody smiled and they moved their coat from a chair and explained what was happening. Or perhaps they introduced us to the person standing nearby. Belonging is constructed through these modest acts of attention, and this matters in our churches, where the beauty and dignity of a sacred space can sit alongside the very human difficulties of entering an established community. It matters in art groups, in choirs, in classes and workshops. Every group develops its own customs and a kind of shorthand, and those who already belong understand where things are kept and where to speak and where the toilets are and what everyone else appears to know. And for a newcomer, even finding the correct door can feel like the first stage of an unusually elaborate initiation ceremony, and it's really quite scary. But it also matters in our homes and in our studios, and a welcoming creative space doesn't have to be large or beautifully arranged. It might contain a scratched kitchen table, several mismatched chairs, and shelves that have given up any kind of serious attempt at order. Its welcome is found in the freedom to touch and explore the materials, to ask questions, to make mistakes, and to contribute something of one's own. Bardi understood that buildings continue to develop through use. The people who inhabit a space complete its design. They move chairs, they gather in unexpected corners, they invent activities and form relationships that the architect could never have planned. And something similar happens in an ancient basilica. Its architects and craftspeople created the structure, the mosaics, the chapels, but centuries of human presence have given the building its accumulated emotional weight. Thousands of pilgrims have knelt there. Music has risen into the roof. Candles have been lit for people whose names are now known only to God. Rose petals have fallen through the air and been carried away on the shoes of the congregation. Perhaps the story of the summer snowfall asks us to remain attentive to what arrives unexpectedly. It suggests that grace may appear in an unlikely place and leave a temporary outline for us to notice. The work of Lina Bardi offers a related invitation. She entered that old factory and recognised that there was life already there, unfolding. She preserved its marks and opened the spaces and made room for that life to continue. And in our own houses and studios and parishes and neighbourhood rooms, belonging is built slowly through the small, really important decisions. And it can be felt in the warmth of that wooden table and a clear route through a crowded room, through the materials placed within reach, that chair drawn into the circle, and the presence of someone who looks up when the newcomer enters. A welcoming place allows another person to alter its life. Perhaps that is what the snow on the Esquiline Hill and the old factory in São Paulo have in common. Both ask us to pay attention to what is already arriving and to make room for it. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's Wednesday Wandering. If you have enjoyed our little reflection, you are very, very welcome to subscribe and like, if that is what you would like to do. And I will see you next time. Until then, let's just be aware of everything that is around us and the things that make us feel most welcome, and consider how we could offer that feeling to someone else. Take care. Bye-bye.